Hi, everyone. It's Lynn Davenport and Mary Lowe, and we are here with State Board of Education member Pam Little, who's in a heated race. She's the incumbent, and she has two opponents, and we just wanted to set the record straight to dispel some of the campaign lies and distortions of the truth out there, and give her an opportunity to tell the truth, the truth about what's happening in this at the state board level. And so we've been working with Pam for, let's see, and it's probably been a couple of years. Pam was my state board of education representative here in Lake Highlands, and we got redistricted out. So now her district, and Pam, I will introduce you and let you cover what your district is, and just tell a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate the time today, ladies. I have been representing District 12 for the last 5 years. 3 of those years, while I've served on the board, I've been the vice chair, unanimously elected by my peers. District 12 is a really large district. It covers 2 million people. It starts western border in Cook County, which is Gainesville, and goes all the way to Bowie County in Texarkana. The biggest portion of the district is in Collin County, where I have lived for 40 years. So know a lot of folks here. Been working in the community for many, many years here.
So you and your husband have a very successful business there in Collin County. So you're a small business owner that really grown it into a pretty big business of fencing company, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Pam, I just first want to say thank you so much. I know there have been many occasions, especially around the TEKS, where I've reached out to you. And the reason I chose you to reach out to, because you're not my representative, is because I watched you so effectively take very far left TEKS that were proposed from a work study group on human sexuality. And I believe it was Donna Bahorich that was the president.
Former chair.
Yes, the former chair. I watched you guys take TEKS that were proposed from TEA's work groups, very far left, not something that Texas would have wanted. And you literally, using Robert's Rules of Orders, moved those TEKS by revising them to right of center. And they are very, I mean, most people consider them. I was at a school board meeting last night and people were complaining about how conservative the TEKS were. So I have watched you in action be very successful because of your knowledge and your diplomacy, as well as your respect among your peers on the board. So
I would argue that you should have been made chair. The governor, I believe, should have appointed you as chair, but we won't go into that. So tell us what TEKS are, the standards. Tell us what that stands for.
The TEKS are the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, and those are curriculum standards, not curriculum. A lot of people get that confused. And it is the responsibility of the state board to approve these standards. And they are in every curriculum area. But it also means that by law, every school district in the state is required to teach these. And that's why our job is so important. And it's so important to me that we have conservative values in these standards so that we know at least the students have to learn it from that aspect.
So, Pam, one of the things that I had to learn when I started studying the curriculum and the standards that were being proposed, or the TEKS that were being proposed, was I had to learn about scope and sequence. And that was something that I was not familiar with because I was not an educator. And it was a little difficult for me to grasp. It made me realize how critical it was, the knowledge. So can you talk about scope and sequence and why that's so critical for our children to have a base to continue to achieve academically?
Well, scope and sequence is really important to curriculum, and therefore it was important that we had the proper scope and sequence in our standards. And the scope is mainly the breadth and depth, and then the sequence is learning the base that you need to know before you can move forward. As an example, in life science, in middle school science, we now have integrated science in middle school. So the students learn some components of life science. Let's say they learned about DNA, but then that's the base that they take with them to biology. A good example in the social studies TEKS, one of that we stopped, that it was my motion that stopped.
Yes.
They had the kindergartners learning about world money, and we hadn't even taught them first of all, the concept of money. And secondly, we hadn't even taught them US money. So that's why the sequencing is important.
So, and tell me about your background in curriculum and in the textbook industry that gives you a special, really advantage over almost everybody on the board because of your experience in the textbook industry and in the curriculum writing industry. I tell everyone all the time that it would create such a vacuum if your particular set of skills and knowledge were removed from the board at this very time because TEA is now writing curriculum. So talk about that experience.
True.
Well, one of the things that for 20 years, when the board would revise the TEKS or do new drafts or whatever, then we would take those TEKS. And at that time, prior to 2011, we were writing the programs for the Texas standards, the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. And then that book would become our national edition. And therefore, it meant that the whole nation was pretty much following along with the Texas standards. And of course, as you know, in 2011, that changed when the legislature said no, that the programs only have to have 50% of the TEKS in it. So what happened is the publishers sort of flipped it. They would write a national edition, throw some Texas icons in it, and that became the Texas edition. So from that standpoint, I'm very knowledgeable about what all it takes to put into an instructional material. And of course, a lot of it now is electronic, and we know how we feel about some of that. Yeah. But it just gives you a real strong background of what needs to be in the TEKS, what needs to be in the instructional materials.
So what was something that happened, because you just talked about that in 2011, you only had to meet 50% of the standards. What's one of the great things that has happened that's changed that this very last cycle of the 88th session, now you guys are doing what percent of the TEKS?
Well, that's actually, it was House Bill 1605, and they actually left it up to the state board to determine that percentage of TEKS. And in conversations I've had with my colleagues, I feel very strongly that we are going to require 100% of the TEKS in our core courses. Now, it might vary a little bit when we get into some of the career and technology courses. It might be, that there's 75% or there's another manual or something like that. But I feel very strongly in our core courses, I will not back off of 100% of the TEKS in all of our instructional materials.
Well, I appreciate that. And on that note, on the 1605, House Bill 1605, that's for open education resources, which is shifting the resources from textbooks to technology. We appreciate the fact that you testified on this bill, or would you say you testified against? I don't remember what the official, I know people
registered on. She registered
on. And you were asked to testify on this bill. And I appreciate the caveats and all of the concerns that you addressed the legislature with on this bill, because open education resources, for one, when they are dynamic and they are digital, then that means they can be changed at any time. So while the legislators were pitched that this would be a parent portal, that the parents could see what the children were learning, what you said is this can be changed on a dime. And what else did you say that were your concerns on the bill?
That was my big concern overall about the open education resources, is by definition, they can be modified. And we didn't have a time frame in there, so the commissioner buys a product, he modifies it, he sends it out to the district. So can they then modify it again? That was a big hole that was in that bill. Now, I think it was Senator Colhurst's amendment that said that after it had been modified at the state level, after our approval, then it could not be modified at the district level.
Okay.
Well, that was okay. So I want to go back to one of the things that we were talking about all of the misstatements are the false narratives. And there are two that I want to zone in on next. One is that you made a donation to a Democrat. And I believe that that's been mischaracterized. I know the person, I like her a lot. And if she'd asked me for money to support that very need, I would have done the same thing. So can you explain to me what that really was?
Yeah, it was Georgina Perez, who at the time was the state board member from El Paso, and that was right at the time of the El Paso shooting. And she reached out to some of the board members to ask for donations to help the victims of the El Paso shooting. And I sent money and had no intention for that to go into her campaign account. And I'm not sure how it got in there, but it was never, ever intended for her campaign account. And she even sent me a letter outlining how all those funds were spent and the fact that they went to buy school supplies to be given to the students who were so afraid after the shooting to go into places to buy their school supplies. So
it's been misrepresented by one of your opponents, Jamie Coleman. She's saying that you donated to $1,000 to a Democrat. Right. So this is just one of many lies that are being spread about you for her campaign. And just, I've done a lot of research on her and her background with the Texas Public Policy Foundation, and she says she's testified at the legislature. We can't find any evidence of her testimony, just that she was there and that she didn't actually speak. She just registered and did not actually speak. So that there's a difference. To go and testify is different than just showing up to register. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is that she is a mom of 3 young children. That is true. What she leaves out is that her children go to a Christian private school. Great. That is her free will. And I think that's great, the parents who have the resources to do that. But she leaves out the fact that her children are not in the public schools. So she is not privy to what is happening to children. Mary and I have had children in the public schools. Mine are now out. And that's part of the thing that we have done in our meetings, Pam, is to go over some of the things that we see on the ground in our public schools. And you've had an open door with us. We express some of our major concerns with the overuse of technology, the issues with the TEKS, and especially the math and the math TEKS, and how we want the state board to take a stronger stance to fix the math TEKS. I've also seen, so I have a lot of people who message me because I butt up against your district. I'm very close. Highland Park and Preston Hollow, these are people that I interact with politically on a daily basis. And they're asking me, who do we vote for? We're hearing this about Pam and that she's for DEI and CRT. And I mean, just bald-faced lies. Tell us what you're hearing and anything that you want to clear the air on with that.
Well, one of the things that keeps coming up, even though I have explained it to my 2 opponents many times, is that I voted for the 1619 project. I did not vote for the 1619 project. And this was particularly the only social studies course that I have approved has been the African American elective studies. And the date 1619 is in there because 1619 in our history is very important. That was the first time we had formed a legislative representative type of government with the House of Burgess in Jamestown. So we definitely want our students to know about the date 1619. And an interesting conversation I had the other day, it's like that the date 1619 has almost been co-opted by the liberals to make it something that it's really not. Kind of the same thing that's been done with the rainbow image. So I just think that, we've got to teach our children about the date of 1619 and the importance of it. And when they keep talking about that we used DEI, they keep referring to the way that we selected the committees within the board. And I can assure you, we did not use DEI. Our process there is for every board member to list their top 2 choices. And then the executive committee of the board tries to put the puzzle together so that everybody gets what they want. No way did we ever use any divide the DEI in any of that. That was the way we did that. And I certainly would never approve anything that was woke. I'm very much a supporter of American exceptionalism and the richness of our Texas history. And that was why I stopped those social studies standards that we had the drafts of that were just so horrible. They did away with fourth grade Texas history. I'm a fifth generation Texan. That didn't sit very well with me. And also students would not learn anything about U.S. history until the sixth grade. My dad fought in the Navy in World War II, and no way would I ever want our students to not learn where their freedoms came from and the price that was paid for them.
You know, and I apologize, I had to get up for a second, but what other questions I have? So I've testified a lot at the State Board of Education, and I learned a lot, and I've really learned to respect every individual member of the board, regardless of what party they are from. Or what party they ran with, because they each have a different student body and a different set of values for the families that live in their district. Those districts are large, and local control is very important because the schools don't all mirror one another. DISD does not look like McKinney ISD. So I think that local control is very important, and I appreciate that you all do not use such an overarching reach of your own personal agenda that you restrict the ability for local control to still come into play. In other words, the Republicans have the majority, but you don't ramrod something through that would keep, say, Aisha Davis from being able to serve her members as well. I learned from being at the state board that something that was very insightful was there was a comment made, we have a lot of new people that move into our school district. And if we don't teach a little bit of Texas history all along the way, then they literally can't sit for the STAR test that's Texas history because they've never gotten any of it. And so that because they move here at different stages of their life, that we need to integrate it all throughout. And that was something that came up. I would have not ever thought of that or known that had I not been at SBOE. So my next question to you is, have the members that are the people who are running against you, have they ever come to the State Board of Education to understand the mechanics of the State Board of Education, or to even learn from the members that are currently on the State Board of Education?
I have never seen Ms. Coleman there. I don't think she's ever attended a state board meeting, and I don't think she understands how we operate, how we meet on Wednesday as the committee of the full board, and then we have our individual committee meetings on Thursday, and then we come back and meet actually as the State Board of Education on Friday. I have seen Mr. Green there once or twice, sort of in and out of the room, but to my knowledge, that's the limit of what they've done.
Would you feel comfortable to talk about why, what you see as the impotence for this, what is statewide, really harsh challenge of the sitting incumbents, you, Mr. Maynard and Member Hardy, for your seat, being confronted by enormous amounts of money and enormous amounts of false information, basically hit pieces that have been coming into your district for well over 6 months. Do you know what triggered that? Is there something that you can think of that is the agenda there, or a goal, or just how do you see that?
Well, I think there are some people in our state that want control of education, and they want control because they want it their way. I want to go back to a comment that you made about local control. I totally agree with local control. I mean, we have over 1,200 school districts in this state, and they're different from socioeconomic, they're different from geography, all kinds of differences. But I think what caused the big hit on the state board is it seems like that these people that are funneling all the money first tried to do that through the local school boards and really failed miserably. I think there were about, up here in my area, I think there were 7 or 8 people that they heavily financed, and I think maybe only one of them won. So, and I think, those were more like a municipal open election. So I think maybe they thought, okay, well, this will be the Republican primary. We'll have a little bit more control. And I think that's what sort of started it, is like, well, we can't get local control, so let's try and get state control.
Okay.
Well, I what I've seen from my vantage point here is that a lot of it is tied to the promotion of charter schools. And so because the state board approves the charter schools, they want more, they don't want any checks and balances there. They want to just ram those charters through. We know this about the commissioner.
We know that.
And yeah. And so, I mean, I'll go ahead and say it. And I know that Jamie Coleman, one of your opponents, is a major proponent of charter schools because as a TPPF, Texas Public Policy Foundation fellow, that is part of their funders are promoting the charter schools. And while, if you've got a charter that's performing better than your neighborhood schools, that's your prerogative to go to that charter. I don't blame parents who choose that, but statewide charters do not outperform our local public schools, our neighborhood schools. And so charters, we've got 80 something Gulen Islamic charter schools in Texas. I mean, the thing is it's when they're supporting charters, they just have a blanket support of charters, and every charter is not alike. And we need a vetting process of the charter schools. And so I appreciate that you and Representative Hardy and the others, you challenge these charter schools who come in with these models that are experimental and they have no evidence to back up that they even work. So I don't know if you want to say anything to that, but that's something we've observed.
I do think that we need oversight on the charter schools, because some of the things that I have seen come in that I did not approve were like bringing in curriculum from California, from New York, and we would ask them, well, what instructional materials are you using? And it wasn't materials approved by the state board, and they would say, oh, well, we will align our curriculum to the TEKS, and when actually it was a Common Core curriculum, which is illegal in the state of Texas. Our lieutenant governor made very sure of that. So I think, that it is my fiduciary responsibility to be sure that we only approve good charter schools. Now, I do like some of the charter schools that are specific for, say, autism, dyslexia, have a special niche. And like you said, Lynn, if there's a public school that's not performing well and there's a charter there that is, then that's great. But there needs to be oversight on the charter schools, just like there's oversight on the ISDs from their local trustees.
Well, I do know that at the beginning of the hit pieces, if you would, one of the things that all of the incumbents were being challenged by was that you denied a Hillsdale school. And that was true. And I was there when it was originally denied. And I remember the arguments around why it was denied. And the person who made the application was basically told, hey, bring it back, make these corrections, bring this up to where it needs to be in order to receive the state funding, because they do get state funding. Right. And came back and really had not changed the application any. And so he was told the exact same thing. And I believe that between the second request and the third request, a member of the board literally wrote his application for him. And then it was too. Yeah, I think that happened too. And so it was never the intent by the board was never to deny Hillsdale. It was to get a completed quality contract. Right. And I appreciate that. I think that that's really important. And we cannot have SBOE members that don't understand the intricacies of that, nor can we have SBOE members who are willing to rubber stamp what the governor wants, or what Texas Values wants, or what TPPF wants, or for that matter, even what the commissioner wants. Because we have too many friends deals being made through education, whether it's mental health friends deal or a charter friends deal. And so I always say that the State Board of Education, that they're the people's goalkeeper that you are the goalkeeper and you are keeping our tax dollars from being flushed down the toilet on a regular basis and trying to get us a return on our investment. So I hope to see you back on the board. I hope that you all will continue to work as cohesively and respectfully with one another as you have in at least the past 5 or 6 years that I have seen. So is there anything else that anybody wants to contribute?
Well, I would like to make one comment on that Hillsdale vote. The first time it was denied, there were many conservative Republicans that voted against that. There were only 3 Republicans that voted for it the first time. Ken Mercer, who was undeniably one of the most conservative members on the state board at that time, voted against that school. So they, like you said, they were just not ready. So it seems unfair to me that I get blamed for that when I did come back and support it in the following years. It was just that one time, and there were obviously some problems.
That's funny because I think Ken Mercer is a financial donor to Jamie. So I think perhaps Jamie should go have a little bit of argument with him instead of with you over that. For sure.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll
just
give
say,
him a call and point that out.
please do. We'll send him this video. So I want to say before we go that if someone runs for this important position as a representative of the people who elect them to get there, they are not elected to represent special interests and the donors who put them there. They are elected to represent the people and the 5.4 or 5.5 million children in Texas public education. So if someone has ulterior motives to push privatization and to siphon the dollars away from public ed into private hands, they have no business being in a position where they are making decisions on the standards and the curriculum and what happens to our children. So I just wanted to say, I appreciate the fact that I know you, and I know that you are there because you were elected to represent the people and their children. And that is what that role should be. And we do want elected state board representatives to represent us, because otherwise appointed commissioners and appointed boards, that's not necessarily the case. So I think we need to point out that this could be a conflict of interest if somebody is being put there to vote in charters or other agendas.
We are a board that supports public schools. That's who we oversee. And, that should be our main focus, is the public schools.
I agree. Well, Pam, thank you so much.
All the arrows.
Anything else you want to say in closing? I guess we should tell people the election. So we still have early voting going on through Friday, and then the big day is Tuesday, March 5th. Polls will be open on Friday until what time? 5 or 7? I can't remember. It closes at 5.
I think it's 7.
I think it's 7.
Yeah.
7. Yeah.
But get there by 5, because we would not want you to go to vote at 7 and miss voting. No. We want you to get there in time to vote. So please do. Pam, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you, ladies. I've always enjoyed working with you.
Well, we enjoy and appreciate you greatly. Your knowledge is unsurpassed.
I appreciate that.